Welcome to the Retirement Made Easy podcast. I'm your host, Greg Gonzalez. My goal for the podcast is to help you live a better life in retirement by giving you the tools and information you need in a language that you can understand. And we do that on every episode on the Retirement Made Easy podcast. You can send me your questions by going to our website, which is retirementmadeeasypodcast.com. That's retirementmadeeasypodcast.com. It's really simple. At the bottom of the website, you can submit your question. It says, Ask Greg a question. Type the question, hit submit, and we will try to answer your question either via email, via a phone call, or with your permission, we'll talk about your question on a future podcast, which is what we're going to do on today's podcast, which I am calling Your Questions, My Answers. While you're on our website, you can, of course, listen to past episodes of the podcast, and you can also download some of our free resources, such as my Retirement Secret Sauce or our 2020 Tax Planning Guide, which a lot of people are going to be using for this upcoming tax season. My contact information, my email address is also on the website, so if you do have questions about your personal situation, you can always feel free to reach out. I really like helping people plan for retirement. That is what I have done and made a career out of my entire life. And quite frankly, I'm very proud of the work that I do, helping clients plan for the retirement of their dreams and a successful future. And what's really neat about that is I get to help people from multiple states across the country. I think I have clients in 11 or 12 different states at this point. On today's episode, this is going to be a rapid-fire set of questions that I have received from listeners of the podcast throughout the entire year. And with their permission, I have been able to kind of collect them together to use them for this podcast. What I have found is if you have a question about retirement, your neighbor may have that same question about retirement, or just hearing the question and the answer can really benefit you as well as many other listeners out there. So we wanted to kind of talk about those questions and answers on today's entire podcast. So you may hear some questions that interest you and others that do not, but just keep listening. I'm sure there's a question that can really help you out. The first question comes from Joanne, and Joanne asks, what are some strategies that people are using for health insurance for those of us that want to retire before age 65 when we can collect Medicare or start Medicare health insurance? This is a fantastic question. I get this all the time. People wanting to retire before 65, but the number one reason why people push off their retirement until 65 is because health insurance is so darn expensive. So what I have seen people do is maybe they work until 63 and a half, and then they bite the bullet, jump on COBRA for 18 months. And depending on their spouse's age, that might be available for up to 36 months. But it's going to be more expensive going the COBRA route because any part of the premium that your employer was paying, well, now you have to start paying. So it can be very costly. It can be $800, $1,000 a month, or even more. But that's one strategy, is the 63 and a half plan for those that want to keep that same health insurance they had while they were working because they've become accustomed to it. Two other options, you can maybe sit down or meet with a health insurance specialist to kind of look over the different plans that are available in the healthcare marketplace, or also known as Obamacare. And remember, that's income-based. So you'll want to make sure you get a full understanding of what that's going to cost, what the deductible is, and can you keep your same doctors and all that good stuff. The other option would be maybe looking at private health insurance outside of the healthcare.gov or Obamacare. So this is something you're going to want to check out ahead of time before you announce your retirement to see, okay, what your different options are as far as health insurance, how it compares to your current insurance, and of course, how you're going to pay for it or what it's going to cost. The next question comes from Tom. Tom has an interesting question. It says, my insurance guy says whole life pays 4% interest. Does that seem right? Would you invest someone's IRA in whole life? So, Tom, I want you to be very, very careful here. Whole life insurance is often misrepresented. Whole life insurance is life insurance. It's not an investment. Please remember that. And then also, Tom, your second question, would I recommend someone invest their IRA in whole life insurance? You're unable to invest your IRA in life insurance. There's a couple different things that you are not permitted to put your IRA in, and one of them is life insurance. So to answer your question, no, I would not recommend putting whole life insurance inside of an IRA, and you couldn't do it even if you wanted to. In my opinion, whole life insurance, term life insurance, is put in place to protect against a premature death. Sometimes they're put in place to pay estate taxes for the very, very wealthy. But personally, I do not look at whole life insurance as an investment that's going to earn me a fixed rate of return. That's just not what it should be used for, in my opinion. It's life insurance. So be very, very careful there. And you might want to get a second opinion from the advice you've been receiving. Next question comes from Sue. Sue asks, can you explain the difference between regular long-term care versus a hybrid long-term care policy? My brother says I should buy the hybrid policy even though it's more expensive. So with traditional long-term care, it is essentially you're paying a premium over a period of time. And if you should ever need long-term care, and we all know how expensive that can be in the future, this policy would pay a promised monthly amount of money to help you pay for the care. A lot of people don't like traditional long-term care because theoretically, you could pay into this long-term care policy for years and years and years. And then if you happen to pass away, let's say of a heart attack or very suddenly, and you never used or needed the long-term care coverage, all the money you had paid in to this long-term care policy would essentially be gone because you passed away before you needed care. You never needed it. So those premiums, in some people's eyes, were wasted. Now, there's a lot more to it than that, but that basically explains traditional long-term care. It's kind of like paying for homeowners insurance. If your house never burns down or you never have an accident with your house, those premiums were paid and paid and paid, and you never had any benefit from them other than the peace of mind that should something happen, you would potentially be reimbursed. What hybrid long-term care, all it is it combines a life insurance component, and there's many different types of policies that are out there, and some are more unique than others. But essentially what it says is, let's say you did pay in over time to this policy and you never needed the long-term care. Well, what happens is there's a death benefit component. So your spouse, your family, your loved ones, church, charity, whomever, you can list as a beneficiary of the life insurance component of it. So someone's going to get, in that instance, a tax-free death benefit based on how the policy was set up. And many people prefer these, like a hybrid policy, and Sue, maybe your brother's one of these people, because the traditional long-term care, again, theoretically, you could be paying into this policy, and if you never needed that care in the future, well, those premium dollars were really wasted and there's no death benefit or residual value. So they kind of came up with a hybrid policy for the people that wanted to know, hey, if I never use this care, somebody is going to benefit from the premiums that I have paid in the form of a tax-free death benefit. Now, with that being said, typically the hybrid policies do come at a higher premium or a higher cost. So good question, Sue. Very good question. Next question comes from Lou. Lou asked Greg, how often should I meet with my financial advisor? This is a great question. I typically recommend either semi-annually or annually, unless a need arises in between. So what do I mean by a need? It might be a retirement date. So you might be retiring in March, but not due for a review meeting until June. Well, you need to contact your advisor probably in January and get that kind of straightened out, get all your ducks in a row. So retirement is not this stressful time. You want to make sure everything's taken care of so you can kind of ease gracefully into retirement. Another example of an event that might trigger a conversation or meeting with your advisor before your review meeting is maybe you're refinancing your house. Maybe it's a divorce in the family. Maybe it's an inheritance. All these different things that, hey, reach out to your financial advisor and move up your review meeting. But for those of you who haven't talked to your financial advisor in years, I would encourage you to pick up the phone, schedule an appointment, and make sure you're still on track. And you need to be meeting with your financial advisor on a regular basis so you can update them on your goals and the changes that happen in your life. Did you change jobs? Do you have new goals such as traveling in retirement, or are you purchasing a new car? All these different things that are going to change your retirement plan, your financial plan. So keep your financial advisor up to date of these changes in your life, or they can't give you really the best information and do the best work for you. This next question comes from Donna. Her question's kind of a hot button of mine, so I will try not to get on my soapbox, but I'll try to do my best answering her question. Donna said, should I put my money into a Medicaid Irrevocable Trust? Why is my attorney recommending this? Okay, so let's talk about, I guess, big picture, what a Medicaid Irrevocable Annuity Trust is. So essentially, it sounds like Donna has been meeting with an elder law attorney. And what they will typically recommend is putting your money, locking your money up into this irrevocable trust. And essentially what you're doing, what they're saying is, hey, should you need long-term care in the future, like my 89-year-old grandmother is paying $7,500 a month for her care. She's in memory care at this point in her life. It is very expensive, but she's paying for it because we're trying to find her family, and I'm part of the family, of course. We're trying to give her the best care possible. But getting back to what this Medicaid Annuity Irrevocable Trust is, this elder law attorney that Donna seems to have had some conversations with is recommending putting money into this irrevocable trust to get it out of your estate. So essentially, instead of paying the long-term care community, the facility, for your own care, you are trying to get the money, hide the money, and get the money out of your estate so you can qualify for Medicaid quicker. So years from now, when you do need the care, essentially you look impoverished, and Medicaid would then kick in and your care would be paid for maybe from your Social Security, any pension that you have, and then Medicaid would make up the difference because your money is then hidden essentially out of your estate in an irrevocable trust that your children or family would inherit in the future. Now, morally, ethically, this is not something that I believe in. So to answer Donna's question, this is not something I would ever recommend for someone. Again, my 89-year-old grandmother, we plan for her expenses. We are, as a family, going to make sure those expenses are paid. Just imagine if everybody did this and everybody hid their parents' money in a irrevocable trust like this annuity that was represented to Donna. Well, everybody that's in a retirement community, memory care, assisted living, would be paying their bill through Medicaid, which is essentially taxpayer money. What a disaster that would be if no one was paying for this care out of pocket and they were hiding their assets in this irrevocable trust that Donna's attorney is recommending. Just an awful program. And honestly, my grandfather would roll over in his grave if he heard we were doing anything like this. No, as a financial advisor, I want to make sure that my clients plan for these expenses later on in life so they can pay for them out of pocket and not do something kind of slimy like this Medicaid annuity. I mean, it's kind of like the people that have a business where they get paid in cash and they make plenty of money. They make a really good living, but all of their business, they're paid in cash and they don't report any of the earnings, the income as a tax return. And then they turn around and they collect food stamps. I mean, it's like, come on, how slimy and scummy is that? So, Donna, I hope that answers your question. Sorry, I inserted my opinion on that. Again, I'm kind of passionate about how I feel about that whole discussion. All right, let's move on to the next question. It's from Dan. Dan asks, I inherited my mom's IRA, and then later on, about 12 months later, my dad passed away, and I inherited his IRA as well. can I move my inherited IRA from my mom into the IRA that I inherited for my dad, or can I move both of them into my own IRA? Dan, the answer to your question is they have to be kept separate. So the IRA that you inherited from your mother, that's a beneficiary IRA with your mother's name in the registration. That has to be kept separate from the beneficiary IRA you get from your dad. And for tax reporting purposes, we should keep those separate. You have to keep those separate. You can't move an inherited IRA and combine that with your own IRA. So great question, though. I wish you could. I mean, wouldn't that be great? You can consolidate 3 IRAs into one. Wow, that would be cool. But again, for tax reporting purposes, we cannot do that. Next question comes from Joe. And Joe asks, my sister wants to retire at 62 and start collecting her Social Security benefit. Is someone's Social Security benefit enough to live on? Okay, that's an interesting question. First of all, what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull up actually my own Social Security statement and look at the front page of it to answer Joe's question. But before I do that, I will say that there are maybe some people out there that can live on their Social Security benefit. As Dave Ramsey says, there's some people that live on beans and rice and beans. I mean, as a family member of mine says, you could live in a tent if you wanted to and have very little expenses. You may not have much of a lifestyle. So it's really going to depend on what type of lifestyle you want to have in retirement. But let me grab my Social Security statement here and read to you at the bottom of the first page of my Social Security statement. It says the following. It says Social Security benefits are, and then they're bolding the font after this point, which is interesting in the sentence. It says Social Security benefits are bold, not intended to be your only source of income when you retire. And then the bolding stops. On average, Social Security will replace about 40% of your annual pre-retirement earnings. You will need other savings, investments, pensions, or retirement accounts to live comfortably when you retire. And that's straight from the last paragraph of my Social Security statement, the first page here. And this came out in October of 2020 is when I am looking at the date on this. So Social Security is telling people up front on the front of their statement, hey, don't plan on Social Security being your only source of income in retirement. They're saying it should replace about 40% of your annual pre-retirement earnings. So the 60% has to come from somewhere else. And I will interject that Social Security may not even make up 40% of someone's income that they need in retirement. There are some people out there that live extravagantly, and maybe they need other sources like retirement savings and investments and so forth to really meet the majority of their lifestyle in retirement. And as long as you plan for that ahead of time, then you'll be just fine. In fact, I have some clients that have instructed me to build their retirement plan excluding Social Security. So they're kind of viewing Social Security as a bonus to their lifestyle in retirement, but they don't want to ever have to depend on their Social Security income to be able to live the lifestyle they want to live comfortably in retirement. Because Social Security, they feel, is one of those things that can be changed in the future, and they don't want to have to change their lifestyle in retirement because of a federal change that Social Security announced. So kind of a unique viewpoint, and those retirement plans, obviously people are going to need more of a nest egg to make up for the income coming from Social Security. And the last question that I wanted to cover on today's podcast was a question from John. And John asked, Greg, should I have gold as a component of my portfolio? Should I put all of my retirement in gold? I'm concerned about the new president and what is in store for the economy ahead. What do you think of gold? Well, John, without knowing your entire financial situation, it's hard for me to recommend an asset for you to invest in. In fact, it's impossible. So that's really a question for your financial advisor and what he or she would recommend as far as gold as an investment. The thing about gold is gold tends to protect in times of uncertainty. When everything else is very, very choppy, a lot of people will invest in gold kind of as a safe haven. But you've got to remember that gold does not pay a dividend. It does not pay you any interest. So for a lot of our clients that are retired and they're looking for an income from their investments, gold may be a very poor choice because it doesn't provide any income. It does not provide any interest, dividend payments to just hold gold. You're hoping that the price of gold goes up so then that you can sell it for a higher price than you bought it. That's essentially what makes gold a good investment in my eyes. Or maybe you're hoping that the price of gold stays the same so the value of your investments remains stable. I would encourage you to look at the long-term rate of return of gold versus maybe other investments. But that's research you can do on your own. Maybe your financial advisor can help you with that. Great question, though, John. This episode has been fun of the Retirement Made Easy podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please check out our website, which is retirementmadeeasypodcast.com. I'm Greg Gonzalez. I will see you next time. And remember, always dream big. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, please consult your attorney, tax advisor, or financial advisor prior to investing. This is a hypothetical example and is not representative of any specific investment. Your results may vary. All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices mentioned are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. The SmartVestor program is a directory of investment professionals. Neither Dave Ramsey nor SmartVestor are affiliates of St. Louis Retirement Advisors or LPL Financial. There is no guarantee that a diversified portfolio will enhance overall returns or outperform a non-diversified portfolio. Diversification does not protect against market risk. All investing involves risk, including loss of principal. No strategy assures success or protects against loss. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA, SIPC.